Hey there, friend, yes, you, the one scrolling late at night with a tired heart, wondering if real love still exists in a world that seems to run on money, status, and perfect filters. Pause for just a second and imagine this: you're on what feels like your very first real date in years. The candles are flickering, the waiter is smiling, but your stomach is twisting because the menu prices are whispering that you don't belong here. You lean in, voice shaking, and whisper the words you swore you'd never say out loud: I can't afford this. What happens next? It doesn't end in awkward silence or a polite goodbye. No. It becomes the beginning of a love story so raw, so kind, and so unexpectedly beautiful that it will stay with you long after the video ends. Stick with me until the very last word. I promise, by the time we reach the final chapter, you'll feel something shift inside you. You'll remember that the greatest love stories aren't written in fancy restaurants, they're built on quiet courage and open hearts. Let's dive in together. Emma had always been the girl who kept going. At 28, she worked 2 part-time jobs, one folding clothes at a discount store until her fingers ached, the other cleaning offices after midnight so she could pay for her little brother's college textbooks. Their parents had passed away when she was 19, leaving her as the only anchor in his stormy teenage years. She rarely dated. Who had time for romance when rent was due and her brother's future hung in the balance? But then Daniel messaged her on a quiet dating app one rainy Tuesday. His profile picture showed a gentle smile and a little girl with pigtails on his shoulders. No flashy car, no vacation selfies, just honest eyes and the simple bio: single dad trying to raise my daughter right. Looking for someone real. Their first few messages felt different. He didn't brag about his job as a mechanic. He asked about her favorite childhood memory instead. When he suggested dinner at La Belle Étoile, the fanciest French place in town, Emma's stomach dropped. She wanted to say no, to suggest coffee somewhere cheap, but his kindness in every text made her hope. Maybe, just maybe, this could be something. She borrowed a simple black dress from her coworker, scraped together enough for bus fare, and told herself she'd order the cheapest salad and make it work. The restaurant smelled like melted butter and expensive dreams. Crystal glasses caught the soft light, and a violinist played softly in the corner. Daniel stood when she arrived, pulling out her chair with a quiet, "You look beautiful, Emma." He was taller than she expected, with laugh lines around his warm brown eyes and hands that showed years of honest work. Their conversation flowed like a river after rain, easy, real. She told him about her brother's scholarship hopes. He shared how his 5-year-old daughter Lily still asked for mommy's bedtime stories even though mommy had been gone for 2 years now. The grief in his voice wasn't dramatic, it was soft, like a wound that had healed into a scar he carried proudly. Then the menus came. Emma's eyes scanned the prices and her throat closed. $45 for a steak? $60 for the duck? Her entire week's grocery budget stared back at her. Panic rose like bile. She waited until the waiter stepped away, then leaned across the table, cheeks burning. "Daniel. I'm so sorry. I can't afford this. Any of it. I shouldn't have let you bring me here." Her voice cracked on the last word. She braced herself for the disappointment, the polite excuse, the way every other date had ended when her reality showed up uninvited. But Daniel didn't flinch. He didn't laugh or reach for his wallet like some hero in a movie. He simply smiled, that same gentle smile from his profile, and said, "Then let's go somewhere better." He signaled the waiter, paid for the 2 glasses of water they'd sipped, and led her outside into the cool night air. Emma's heart hammered. Was this pity? Rejection in disguise? Instead, he drove 10 minutes to a brightly lit food truck parked near the river. Grilled cheese and tomato soup, Lily's favorite Friday night tradition, he explained, handing her a paper basket with the gooey sandwich wrapped in foil. They sat on a wooden bench under string lights, the river reflecting the city glow. No crystal glasses. No violin. Just the sound of laughter from nearby families and the warmth of melted cheese on her tongue. That night, under those simple lights, Emma learned the real Daniel. He wasn't rich. He fixed cars by day and built birdhouses with Lily on weekends because his late wife had loved watching them from their tiny backyard. He admitted the expensive restaurant had been a mistake, he'd wanted to impress her, not intimidate her. "Money buys the table," he said quietly, "but it doesn't buy the conversation we're having right now." Emma told him about the nights she cried in the laundry room so her brother wouldn't hear. About the fear that she'd never be enough. Daniel listened without fixing, without pity, just held her hand across the picnic table and said, "You're already more than enough, Emma. The rest is just details." By the time he dropped her home, something had shifted. For the first time in years, Emma didn't feel like the girl who cleaned offices at midnight. She felt seen. And as she watched his taillights disappear down the street, she whispered to the empty apartment, "Maybe love doesn't have to be expensive after all." The weeks that followed were a beautiful blur of grilled cheese dates, park walks with Lily, and late-night texts that made Emma smile at her phone like a teenager. Daniel never once made her feel small. When her car needed new brakes she couldn't afford, he fixed them after hours and refused payment, saying, "Consider it payment for the way you make Lily laugh." Lily, 5 years old, curly-haired, and full of questions, quickly decided Emma was her new favorite person. "You tell better stories than Daddy," she'd declare, climbing into Emma's lap with a picture book about princesses who fixed cars instead of waiting for rescue. But life doesn't let happiness sit quietly. 3 months in, Emma's landlord raised the rent again. Her brother's tuition bill arrived the same week her store cut her hours. One rainy evening she sat on the floor of her tiny apartment surrounded by bills, tears falling onto the eviction notice in her hands. "I'm going to lose everything," she whispered when Daniel called. He didn't offer money he didn't have. He didn't promise to save her. He simply said, "Pack a bag for you and your brother. Come stay with us tonight. We'll figure it out together." That night, in Daniel's modest 2-bedroom house, Emma cried in his arms while Lily slept down the hall. "I feel like such a burden," she sobbed. Daniel held her tighter. "You're not a burden. You're the person who reminds me it's okay to need help. I lost my wife thinking I had to carry everything alone. I won't let you carry this storm by yourself." The next morning he woke early, made grilled cheese for breakfast, Lily's special recipe with extra cheddar, and sat Emma and her brother down at the kitchen table. "We fix cars, we fix houses, we fix families," he said simply. One day at a time. Emma started helping at Daniel's garage on weekends, learning to hand him tools while Lily supervised from a stool. Her brother tutored Lily in math in exchange for a place to stay. Slowly, the eviction notice was replaced by a new shared lease, Daniel's house big enough for all of them if they squeezed a little. Challenges still came, nights when Daniel's grief hit hard and he sat on the porch missing his wife, mornings when Emma woke up terrified she was repeating her parents' struggles. But every time, they chose each other again. He taught her that strength isn't never falling, it's letting someone catch you. She taught him that love can grow in the cracks left by loss. 6 months later, on a quiet Sunday, Lily tugged Emma's hand and handed her a crayon drawing. It showed 4 stick figures holding hands under a crooked sun, Daddy, Emma, Lily, and her big brother. Above them, in wobbly letters, it said, "Family." Tears blurred Emma's vision as she pulled the little girl close. Daniel watched from the doorway, his own eyes shining. "She's right, you know," he said softly. "We don't need fancy restaurants. We just needed each other." And in that moment, standing in their imperfect, beautiful home filled with the smell of grilled cheese and second chances, Emma understood the truth that had stunned her on that very first date: the greatest love stories don't start with money or perfection. They start with someone who looks at your fears and says, "Let's go somewhere better." They're built on whispered truths, shared sandwiches, and tiny hands drawing the future you never dared hope for. So here's the message I want you to carry with you, friend, yes, you who stayed until the end: never let the price tag on a menu, or on life itself, convince you that you're not worth the kind of love that shows up anyway. Be the person who chooses kindness over convenience. Be the single dad who trades elegance for honesty. Be the struggling woman brave enough to speak her truth. Because somewhere out there, someone is waiting to turn your "I can't afford this" into the beginning of forever. If this story touched your heart even a little, remember, you're not alone. Real love is still out there, waiting for hearts brave enough to choose it. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, keep believing.